In Vectorworks Landmark or Architect, a stake object represents the location of an important 3D point, either proposed or existing, on a site model. This object displays the elevation, coordinate points, or other information about that point. You can use stakes to modify an existing site or use them as geographic markers in your file. When you select the stake tool from the Site Planning toolset, you will see two tool modes in the toolbar. The first mode, Standard Insertion Mode, inserts a single stake object wherever you click in the drawing. The second mode, Offset Insertion Mode, will insert a stake at each vertex of the polygon shape you draw. You will also notice a preference button where you can configure the default settings for the stake object. When you click on the tool preferences, an Object Properties dialog will appear so you can set the defaults. First, choose what mode of the stake you wish to use. Include as site model data. We'll use the stake object's data to create the site model if it is located in the site's source data. If you are creating the site model from stake objects, you will want to choose this option. Set elevation to site model will automatically change the elevation of the stake to match the location of the site model that it is placed on. With this mode, you can choose if you want to pull the data from the existing or proposed site by changing the site model selection below. The next mode, Use as 2D graphic only, will place the stake as if it were a simple text object in marker. It will not use any 3D information like elevations. The last mode, Site Modifier Object, will modify either the existing or proposed site model. This will allow you to place the stake directly on the site model and have it change the elevation of the site to what you specified. Again, you can determine if the existing or proposed site is affected by changing the site model field below. Now that you have selected the mode for the stake, you can select the style. This will determine the graphic style of the stake object marker, which is displayed next to the label. You can choose between triangle, circle, tick mark, and other styles. You can also offset the stake object indicator from the insertion point of the object by entering a value in the Mark Offset X or Mark Offset Y fields. If you have the style set to triangle, cross, or tick mark, you can rotate the mark by entering a value in the Rotate field. In the Label Reference drop-down box, you can choose what information is displayed on the stake object label. You can choose ID, which will allow a unique ID value for each stake in the ID number field. You can also enter an ID prefix or ID suffix. You will then notice a checkbox, Auto ID Numbering, which will automatically increment the ID number when you insert new stake objects. With Auto ID Numbering checked, the ID number field will change to Initial ID Number, and the numbers will be incremented beginning with the initial number specified. Elevation will show only the stake elevation on the label. Description will show the description text that you enter below. ID Elevation will display the stake ID number as well as the elevation of the stake in the label. You can also choose to display the ID in description or the description in elevation of the label. Station point data will allow you to indicate the station point data for each stake. This is useful for stationing data on roadways. Coordinate point will show the stake object's distance from the user origin, or it can show the geographic position if you are georeferencing your layers. Coordinate point northing, easting, and coordinate point easting, northing display the distance prefixed with the direction. Coordinate point XY displays the distance based on the file coordinates. You can also specify the units by choosing the appropriate units in your document unit settings, or by choosing the units in the coordinate units dropdown. To display the longitude and latitude, specify decimal degrees or degrees, minutes, seconds from the list. If the coordinate units are set to feet, meters, decimal degrees, or degrees, minutes, seconds, you can specify the precision in the drop-down below the units. If you have the label set to coordinate point, you can also choose to display the elevation of the stake on the label. Choose Show Elevation and then specify the elevation units below. Again, you can choose to specify the precision of the elevation if you use feet, meters, decimal degrees, or degrees, minutes, seconds as your elevation units. You can also show the unit mark on the label, which will be based on your unit settings for the stake or your document settings for units. Display Leader Line will draw a leader line from the label to the stake object. You can adjust the line by moving the leader line control point, which is represented by the blue selection handle by the label. You can also change the location of the text by choosing the label position in the dropdown. Auto will determine whether to place the text on the left or right, depending on the position of the label related to the stake's location. If you wish to make the stake object indicator larger or smaller, you can adjust the scale by entering a value for scale factor. Values larger than 1 will increase the size of the stake object indicator, while values smaller than 1 will decrease its size. Once you have set the default values for the stake tool, you are ready to place stake objects in the drawing. Click OK to close the object properties. Then, choose the appropriate tool mode from the toolbar. You should also set the elevation for the stake in the elevation field. Once you have the elevation set, click to place the stake in the drawing. If you need to, you can edit the properties in the Object Info palette after the stake is placed. You can use stake objects to quickly display elevations or coordinates in the site model. You can also convert many objects, like 3D loci, to stake objects, making it easier to create site models in Vectorworks after importing different files and information.